Okay, this video is what I think about alien contactee and Dan Burish. I think before I make this video, I'm going to make a little bit of a disclaimer, though, because there are people out there who I've had comments on who are like, you know, you shouldn't be uploading videos talking about shit you don't know anything about, you fucker. You know, like, leave it up to the pros to talk about it. Somebody said that about what I think about Bob Lazar. And my answer to you is, we all have different perspectives, and I would love to hear other people's perspectives, because some people pick up different things than other people, and besides, there's nobody doing what I do anyway, so I'm the only one who's digesting this shit for other people. So, fuck you. So anyways, yeah, what I think about Dan Burish. I don't know if I've done this video before, but if I have, I guess this is number 2. I would like to look in my computer to see if I've done it before, because I have my videos, some of my videos, on my hard drive, and I don't have internet connection right here, but I can't because my battery is depleted, so I'll do the video anyway. Dan Burish is one of the alien contactees interviewed on Project Camelot. Their YouTube channel is Jack Bodhi. It's a guy who worked for NJ12, who are the people who work in the basement of Area 51, doing experiments on aliens and back engineering their spaceships, and you know, installing anti-gravity hyperdrives and B-52 bombers, you know, making them look like normal planes when they really have anti-gravity and all this weird shit. Yeah, he worked for them as a, what do you call him, as a biologist, hired on to try to figure out what was wrong with these aliens. Dan Burish, when he was 9, I haven't seen the video of the interview with him with Jack Bodhi for a couple of months, but I listened to it a couple of times riding my bike, so I have it down pretty well. When he was 9, he was with his his grandfather in a park, and like he sees this like shadow, and then he passes out, and he wakes up, and his like grandfather's hysterical. It's like, okay, you're okay, let's get out of here though. And then his grandparents got kicked out of his parents' house, and they had this falling out over it, and they didn't know why. And then he realized later that he had like some regression, and realized later that he had been taken aboard a spaceship and got infused with the DNA or something, some kind of energetic energy of some other child that I think these aliens may be working in cohortion with. I think one alien named Kylel, who is a human from 52,000 years in the future, a gray alien, from a parallel universe, was working on some kid to make him more of a communicator for the aliens. But but anyways, this kid died, so they took the energy from the kid, the brain power or the DNA or some kind of something, which I don't even understand, and put it into him. And then all of a sudden he had like special skills about science or interest in science, and so then he became a biologist. And he's a very articulate person. You can tell he's very intelligent, has, you know, big vocabulary, and I believe him. He seems very honest. He's like a hippie dude too. You know, he hangs out in like a tie-dye shirt with his girlfriend or his wife, or I think is also an alien contactee, and her mother was working for MJ12 too. But yeah, he was hired on as a biologist to figure out what's wrong with these gray aliens, and I think I'd learn more about gray aliens from Dan Burish than anybody else. Because he actually made friends with a gray alien. He's the only guy who I know of who's made friends with a gray alien down there in Area 51, because they had him doing that. And now, so you go down all these flights of stairs, way down, and then you take a tram through these tunnels, and like it's like a huge complex down there where they're I don't know what they're trying to do. They're trying to do like cloning. I don't know. Maybe I think they're helping. They're they're working with aliens from the future. I'll get into the backstory. What happens is in a parallel universe, and he calls it T2, timeline 2, which is a possible timeline that's related to our timeline. Now, as I understand from what Bashar says, who's a hybrid gray alien human, there's an infinite amount of parallel universes in the third dimension that we live in. But this is like, I guess, our sister third dimension or whatever, sister parallel universe, one that has been interacting with us, where they got to 2012, where the sun gets to the center of the galaxy, and that photon belt that gets spun out from the fast-moving, spinning central black hole of the central galaxy shoots out that photon belt, and we pass it to go on the southern hemisphere of the galaxy, so to speak, and it causes what's supposed to be an ascension, giving us more energy, taking us to the next level where we can kind of become gods, I guess, where we can live longer and not have to get organ transplants in order to live longer. You live longer just because you live longer, there's more energy, and you can even begin to read each other's minds. You become a lot more intelligent, this kind of a thing. And they got to there, but it was a sick parallel universe. Now, the concepts of parallel universe, I don't know if I want to get into too deeply because that's another subject, but you have an infinite amount of parallel universes on this timeline, but then you have an infinite amount of different timelines. So you have different parallel universes who are ahead of us and behind us. So that's how time travel works. When you go back in time, you're not going back in time in your world, but you're going back in time in a world that's so similar to yours, it might as well be your world. So when you alter the course of history, you are altering the course of history, but it's not your history. Like when you go back to your world, it's all the same. It's all exactly the same as it was. You can't change anything. But if you go back to that world at your timeline, you will see it. And supposedly you can fly around to any old timeline you want when you get to that level of technology with your spaceships and all that, which are alive, which represent the oversoul of your human soul. Anyways, that's Bashar. Sorry, I got a little bit sidetracked. So it was this one timeline where when they go through that photon belt, it's supposed to, bring the energy up and then also cause a pole shift. Well, what happened is they, for some reason, tried to, and maybe with the help of some other aliens or something, now why they did this, I don't know, but they caused a huge nuclear explosion on the North Pole or the South Pole because they wanted to create the pole shift. For whatever reason, they thought that creating a pole shift would allow the world to ascend or something. Or maybe they deliberately wanted to kill everybody in the world. Maybe that's what happened. Because a lot of people in the world today want everybody to die. The Georgia Guidestones, nobody knows who put them there, but some person who has the money, because they're expensive to put there, is like, yeah, our goal is to reduce the population of the world to 500 million. And the reason they want to do that is because they have had time travelers and aliens come back and say, oh yeah, well in the future there's only 500 million people. So then they're like, oh, so that means we have to make it 500 million people. No, you don't make the world 500 people by killing 6.5 billion people. Or 5.5 billion people, or whatever the fuck the number is now. That's just what it is in the future, because naturally when people have money and you get to a utopian society, you don't want to have kids, you want to party, you want to have fun. And so the population naturally goes down, naturally shrinks. And that's just how it was in the future. But maybe they were like, oh, we have to make it like that because it was like that because we have to make it like that, like a failure of communication or something between the time travelers who would talk to them. So anyways, they blew up the North Pole, and it caused a pole shift that caused tidal waves and earthquakes, and they did it the unnatural way. And it killed, I think he said it killed 2/3 of the world population. And so then they lived on the earth for like thousands of years after that. And, but the earth kind of was on a downhill track after that. And they were the Earth was becoming sick, physically sick. So they had to move underground. And then the rich ones, the elite ones, because this was in a sick parallel universe where there was this whole elitism going on, influenced by the Orion aliens, who are influenced. This is Alex Collier bullshit stuff. Who were influenced by the reptile, the Tyrannosaurus Rex, baby brain eating aliens. So they did the explosion, and yeah, so they lived, they destroyed the planet. So the elite ones flew off the planet and moved to the moon, lived on the moon for a little bit. I think this is Alex Collier. And then lived on Mars for a little bit. This is back to Dan Burish. And then moved off to some other planet off in Lyra. That's Alex Collier again. And they evolved and became taller, and their heads became larger, and their eyes became larger, but they still look like us. And they're called the Tall Whites. They're the ones who have abducted Miriam Delicado and are warning her about the upcoming catastrophe. You know, my opinion is these Tall Whites are just confused about the timeline. They went to the wrong one. You know, they went to one where nothing wrong is going to happen, and they went to one where they just want to make sure people are aware, just to avoid it, just to make double sure. But anyways, that's who those guys are. But the ones who moved underground were living in a less than ideal living situation. I'm gonna pause it and put on again.